I believe I'd mentioned previously that we are working with the court process, the district attorney, to monitor repeat gun offenders. Whatever we need to do to get at why things are happening the way they are, why the continuous flow of guns out there and some of the violators. We're going to do what we can until we're able to have a major impact here. And again, we're focusing on known offenders. There's a few reasons for that. One is that it targets the people who are responsible. The other is that people who are going about their lives, there should be minimal impact to them. This is something we heard from the community. It was a concern of theirs, and we took that into account when we came up with this plan. So what we also want to do is look at what follow-up services we can if there's something that's impacting their situation. We want to do the wraparound piece, not just focus on the justice part, but also if there are things we need to do to help the situation, we're more than willing to do that. And based on that, I'm more than happy to answer your questions.
Since you're on generality, what's the specific plan that is targeting the repeat offenders, and how are you working with the courts under bail reform to keep people held?
Well, on specifics, we had released this plan, as you know, several weeks ago. So we're still sticking with that. I don't want to go into specifics as far as strategy, you know, for obvious reasons, but just know that our methods are specific, that we're looking at people with a history and a repeat offender on gun violations. But how and to what detail, I'm not going to go into specifics on. And I believe you also asked about bail reform, your question on that. I did have a meeting with Judge Doran about a few weeks ago, and I expressed some of my concerns around the release of people with repeat gun offenses. It was a good meeting. He's more than willing to work with us to see what the courts can do to try to ensure that we give people an opportunity to get out if necessary, but also we want to take community safety into account as well.
Seems like there's a reason.
Just one more point on that. We had talked about establishing a court watch, a virtual court watch, where people volunteers can watch the court process, see what's going on, monitor who's being released, and what their history is. So that's something that's in the works, and so I'll keep you posted on it. But you had a question?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
That's all right.
Seems like there's been a recent spike in carjackings. Can you speak to that trend a little bit, and have you noticed, I mean, because if we look, you know, looking at the open data portal numbers, it's obviously hard to classify a carjacking because, you know, is it an assault if there's a shooting, is it a robbery, you know? So have you seen a recent spike, and what's driving this? Like, how are these, is it organized, is it all random? What are you guys noticing in your investigations?
It's okay. The difficult part with crimes like this and crime activities like this is it tends to be random. How do you know what person is going to show up at one location in their car? And so I think that's part of the difficulty. We had that shooting incident and homicide back on Monroe and Woodman, I believe it was, around the restaurant. And those two people weren't planning to come and meet each other there. It's just difficult when there's the theme of random involved in it. So to the extent that we see certain increases, you know, over time, that's why you have to monitor criminal activity not day to day or week to week, because different things have an impact on what your numbers are going to show. So, and so, for example, we know in the case of the gentleman who was unfortunately killed during that carjacking in Gates, that there was a young man arrested on that case. But in these cases over the weekend, these were both female suspects. So To that extent, is it connected? I mean, those are things we're still working on. I'd love to give you a neat answer to that, but I really just cannot, because these are things we're still assessing.
Chief, I know the department's doing everything they can, or it can, to stem these shootings, yet there's a report of a shooting on Gilmore Street right now. How difficult is it for us to all be here to hear that there's another shooting, possible shooting?
Well, and I think anytime anyone's shot, I mean, these are people that someone cares about, somebody loves, and it's always going to be difficult to hear and deal with. So certainly we want to extend our hearts out to the families because somebody loves them. But at the same time, I continue to believe, and I have this has been my position for quite a bit of time, is that when we're looking at issues like this, we alone as a police department are not the answer, because if we were, then we wouldn't have these problems. Crime would have been gone by now. So I'm a big proponent that we've got to look at causations and work together, and we all bring our best to the table. So that's why when we talk about, even though we're targeting offenders, but we're also open to looking at what got them into their circumstance in the first place, so we can try to have an impact with that.
About a month ago, we were having the conversation about targeted enforcement. I mean, has it been working in any way in the last month or so?
I believe so. I've been seeing the reports, and I'm sorry we don't necessarily are able to go into detail or specifics, but I look forward to being able to share more information where we can. But I've read some very impressive responses that, had it not been for our officers literally targeting people that we knew had a background in these types of circumstances, that we were able to bring to closure of some cases that we may not have been able to make an arrest in. So I do hope to be able to talk more about that, but I like what I'm seeing so far. I do.
I know you can't get specific, but I mean, can you maybe say, was it a result of increased presence, or I guess anything like that, or was it more technical, more complicated?
Well, I'm going to say increased presence, because if they weren't targeting this particular person and were in the vicinity when certain things happened, then we might not have had the success we did. So I'm very pleased with that and the efforts and what I'm seeing on our folks. You know that this is a job that can often be thankless, but I want to thank the ones, our staff who stepped up to the challenge. Captain Torriello has worked quite a bit on our ATV response plan, so I want to thank him personally, and also Captain Lucian. But they come in early, even though they work nights, and sit at the table and help us figure out some really good solutions to some of the things we're dealing with. So.
Chief, talk about the ATVs. I believe the county ledge tonight is going to take up a bill about off-road vehicles. What has been RPD's input into that, to have a county-wide approach as opposed to just a city approach on that?
Well, we've actually done both, where we've had some initial meetings with our corporation council. We've met with Buffalo Police Department to see what worked well for them, what did not, so we could get a little bit of background on that. Those were good meetings. We gave our input into our corporation council so they could make some tweaks and changes to the charter. And so because I put it out personally, so we've definitely had a chance for our folks to look at it and weigh in on making any needed changes. But obviously, as things happen, this is not an issue we've had to deal with on an extended basis. I don't know what to call it. Pandemic cabin fever. I don't know, but it's a major issue, but not just for us, but like the other trends, even the violent crime. These are things that people are dealing with across the country.
Give me one more.
One more question.
Executive Deputy Chief Anderson said that soon we will be seeing the use of force policies and the restraining of juveniles. How close are those policies? And then also with the release of the approved grand jury minutes, we saw questions about the use of segmenting, and has that policy been updated at all? It doesn't look like it has been in the general order, so I'm just curious on both of those fronts.
Sure. We literally had a meeting this morning because we decided there were some things we wanted to go back, revisit, and tweak. And I would say within the next week, we'll be able to say more about that. We're going to get maybe a little bit more input in certain areas, and then we'll be willing to put that out to folks. And then you asked me about the approved decision. Was it around segmenting?
Correct. Has the policy towards segmenting been updated, and do you know if it's been used effectively in any incidents?
Well, I can't give you a report on its use at this point. I just don't have enough information for that. I can tell you that we've put a hold on segmenting because we're looking at everything. We want to revisit everything and be sure before we give our full endorsement to whether a change is going to take place or not, that we've done a lot of research on that. And as you know, we're working with consultants on that to make sure that we have the best practice involved, and we put that out to the community so that people know exactly what our plans are and what we're doing. So thanks, everybody.
Chief, when did the hold start?
All right. Mark, is it possible to talk to Ryan about the ATVs?